Hello, hello everybody. Uh, a little bit of an introduction, maybe first. Yes, I've been working as a scientist, biological scientist, for some time now, and I actually started my career and I did my PhD in respiratory medicine. So I'm quite familiar with a lot of the sort of topics of discussion here because COVID-19 mainly affects the respiratory system. It's a virus of the respiratory system. So that's why I've been following this very closely. And actually, a couple of days ago, it was quite interesting. I just saw in one of the papers that there was a group based in Perth who are leading this 2,000 person clinical trial with the BCG vaccine. So there is a thinking that the BCG vaccine may be quite effective against COVID-19, and that would be a real benefit because any other vaccine that's being developed right now could take a year or more to come to market and be available to people. Whereas if you go with something that is already available, that's a huge bonus. You don't have to go through a lot of the trials processes. From a production perspective, a lot of this stuff is ready. And I found that the people who are actually doing this trial is my old research group. So these are the people I used to work with when I was in Perth. So anyway, so yeah, I've been following it quite closely. And the funny thing is, from my perspective, what's a bit different is that a lot of people are saying, oh, nobody saw this coming. We had no idea something like this would happen. And it has taken everybody by surprise. But that is not really true. We've known for many years now that a viral outbreak like this was imminent. These things happen in cycles, and epidemiologists and virologists study these things. And people have been predicting since the sort of early 2000s that we were overdue for a pandemic viral outbreak of some sort. A lot of people thought it might be a variation of the flu virus, which we saw in sort of small scale with the H1N1 outbreak and the previous SARS outbreak and so on. But what happened right now was no surprise. But what is disappointing is how it still caught us really off guard and how unprepared we were for it at a personal level, at a community level, or even at a government level. So anyway, so coming back to Simontoda's point, uh, actually, maybe I'll preface that a little bit. Uh, Talking to people about this, I seem to talk to people about this very regularly. A lot of people like Srimantoda have reached out to me. A lot of people reach out to me almost on a daily basis, several times a day, like friends, family, friends of friends, and through social network and so on, who are confused and who have a lot of questions and who have received a lot of information which they are unsure about how to process, they're unsure about the authenticity of it. So I've spent a lot of time talking to people about these things. And what is striking and what is really disappointing is the amount of misinformation that is around. And this goes at every level. This goes at people willfully spreading it to people who are good, well-meaning people, people who are trying to help others. Uh, and they, I find, are doing things and trying to do things which are not necessarily correct, which are not going to help anybody at best, and are going to hurt people at worst. This goes all the way to the top, where up to presidents of countries recommending drugs which are untested and and probably ineffective, putting people at risk. So this is, to me, one of the things that Simontada said in his topic was life after COVID-19. COVID-19 and beyond. So one of the things, the biggest lessons that I think we need to take on from this, and maybe as a a community group, as a social group, one of the things that we can probably push for is educating people against absorbing and spreading misinformation. That has very direct consequences. I'll give you a very simple example. Maybe I'll start with Srimantada's example, where he basically asked me about hand sanitizers. And I know this is a very confusing issue to most people. A lot of people are unsure about what is better. Do I go for a 70% hand sanitizer? Does my hand sanitizer need to have chlorhexidine? How much of it should I apply? Do I buy the more expensive one or the cheaper one? Does it need to have aloe vera? Does it need to smell of strawberries or peppermint? And so on. But one of the easiest answers is you don't actually need hand sanitizers. The best thing to do is wash your hands with soap and water, because the coronavirus structure is quite simple. It's basically a bit of genetic material in a lipid capsule. So lipids are fats. They're the molecules which make up fats. And just like any soap, any detergent breaks down fat, you've seen this yourself. The same way, if you wash your hands carefully with soapy water, that'll break down the virus pretty quickly. And yes, hand sanitizers also work. And when you're out and about, obviously, you may not be able to wash your hands whenever you want to. So if you have a bottle of hand sanitizer handy, that's always a good option to have to do something on the go. But that does not reduce the importance of hand washing. Hand washing is still probably the easiest and most sure way of ensuring that you don't spread the virus. The other thing was, don't touch your face. People touch their faces 2,000 times a day. And and I've seen people still doing it out in the community. So if you're concerned about coronavirus, put your hands in your pocket. Only touch your face when you're in your house, once you've washed your hands properly and you're clean and you're sure about it. The other thing which I find a lot of people are very confused about, and I see this everywhere, literally everywhere. I was out just now at the shops, and I see bad examples of this, is masks. People out there seem to have almost no idea about what to do with masks. Should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? What kind of mask should I wear? The fact of the matter is that if you are a person who is infected with the coronavirus, wearing a mask of some sort will help prevent its spread. So in a community where the coronavirus is already very prevalent, such as New York, where probably 60 to 80% of people are carriers right now, or maybe nobody really knows, they're recommending that everybody should have masks on. So if you are a carrier, which you probably are, you don't spread it to somebody else. But in a place like Australia, where the number of carriers in the minority, wearing any mask, wearing a surgical mask, wrapping a scarf around your face, wrapping a nappy or a sock and tying it to the back of your head is not going to do anything to prevent you from getting the virus. Those things are completely useless. The only sort of masks which can actually prevent you from inhaling virus are called N95 masks. They have a special kind of filter called N95. And those masks are not easy to come by. Those masks are not cheap either. So most people will not have access to it. But what people do, and this is what we see all the time, and I saw this just now, people go and buy surgical masks and they put that on. And usually they put them on upside down, or they put them on incorrectly. Or I see people lifting their mask to rub their nose or pick something out of their teeth, which is just as bad as not wearing it. And that is the problem with something like this, because when you believe that you are wearing a mask and that's protecting you, it gives you this false sense of security. So you don't take the other precautions that you're supposed to because you have a surgical mask on, so you don't need it. So, and what it also does is, by people buying up and hoarding surgical masks, they ensure that people who actually need it, which are doctors and surgeons, don't get them when they need it, when they actually need to purchase it. And I see a lot of this happening in India right now, which is very concerning. Everybody, from even top leaders, I see them walking in the streets with some dirty piece of rag tied around their face as if that's going to protect them. It's not. So this is just a couple of examples. And every day I open up WhatsApp and I open up Facebook or any sort of community, any sort of group, and I'm flooded with these messages which contain absolutely wrong information. Most of it is pretty benign. A lot of it is quite dangerous. Stuff like, oh, you should, if you gargle with hot water every day, you won't get infected with coronavirus.